humanity is hard. People, life, that's to exist is a lot. It's my perpetual
existence
struggle.
is pain, right? But none of us can do it alone.
That part.
And that's it. We can't.
That's the thesis of From. That's the thesis of my life. That's the thesis of humanity. So I'm going to get into it. My section is about hope and the power of community. Because, like, when everything awful is happening, like it is, and protection, like historically and now, like it never stopped being awful. It's always awful. But we persist because it's a battle of attrition. If we think of it like Avatar, and we got Vatu and like the evil Avatar, and then we got the good guy, and they're always battling for who's going to be in the front, and we just got to keep going and work together, and that's the only way that we're going to have a good time. So when something feels so unfathomably evil and awful, it's easy to feel like we don't have the next steps for victories or hope. From really showcases how people can come together in horrible circumstances, and also shows, as Gabe said, how hard it is to fight evils that feel so big and unfathomable. If anything, From is so nice that they just show you the teeth and the scary faces and the murder. Like, you know that's what's going to happen if you open your window, which is nice, versus like the kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen that comes in the further seasons, where just like things that they've never experienced before keep going and going and going. So, as Gabe discusses, the first season is very much a disaster utopia, showcasing a strong community where everyone supports and loves each other through everything, while everything around them is on fire, and they work together to put it out. Even though everything around them is horrifying, they have each other and have moments of peace and love that every zombie movie would suggest wouldn't be possible. And it's beautiful. But as the show continues through seasons 1 and 2, we see the most powerful figures of community struggle humanly. And that's what I really appreciate about the show, is that even our pillars of hope need time to heal and cope and have their hard times. And multiple times throughout the show, we see these characters be human, flawed, and real as people are, and in a way that society doesn't really allow us to be. Like, a lot of times people look to heroes, they'll hero them, and they'll be like, I can't do that because they're different, they're stronger, they have something about them that makes them able to do that, and I can't do that, so I'm just going to give up.
It's dangerous. It is really dangerous mindset when we pillar a person as this beacon of virtue or heroism. It does isolate normal people.
And when we're all that. We can all be Boyd. We can all be Donna. We can all be Fatima, Kenny, Tianjin, and Christy. All these people like stand up and are like, wow, everything's awful. Let's work together and care for each other. And what I love about the show is that it allows for human moments. What it is kind of missing is like someone to like step up and like take turns. So they're processing unfathomably awful things. And we also see everyone kind of like struggle with like witnessing our pillars not be okay. But it's like really important to see that, I think. Like it's a really human show, and it does dissolve a hierarchy, because when it tries to form a hierarchy, the hierarchy is going to come down, and then everyone's just going to have to rise to the occasion. And we do see people react humanly, both successfully and unsuccessfully. It's just like a really great critique of humanity, in my opinion. So I really appreciate the show specifically. As my little kudos to the creator. Gabe, you make me watch a lot of things, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't. This is not one of those times. I really enjoyed it. I was stressed. I had to take a break in the middle of season 3 because I was like, but we came back, and then and I got to enjoy it, and I don't know where it's going to go, and I really hope they give us more hope in the coming seasons, because I think we need like a nice filler episode of joy to make everything. Maybe they go to the beach, and everything ends up a little bit more okay. But I ultimately just really appreciated the show, so that's my recommendation to watch it. With that said, while we don't have horrifying monsters that only come out at night with teeth and scary things, pretending to be like being human amongst other humans can sometimes feel like an episode of From. We have a lot of psychologically stressful things happening right now, real threats to our safety, sense of self, and sense of community happening every day. So I thought it might be nice to talk about some of the victories that have been happening recently. And like, it's not enough, but like, it is nice moves, So Recently, there have been economic blackouts, specifically on February 28th, specifically aimed at Target, that led to a reported 16% decrease in customer visits, which is like millions of people. I know it sounds like a little number. It's like 4 million.
I mean,
that's a lot of
Target
consumers.
is a big one.
Yeah, if 16% of the people decrease, that's like a big amount. And the boycotts are ongoing and positioned against Amazon, Walmart, General Mills, Nestle, McDonald's, Target, as well as just like regular economy as a whole, shop local, pay with cash, stuff like that. Historically, boycotts work as a battle of attrition. So obviously one day is not going to be enough to change the tides entirely. But if we noticed anything from like Starbucks in 2024, we decimated them. They're recovering now, which is gross.
Even Chipotle had some rough times.
Yeah, and it required them to change tides. And it's like, I'm of the persuasion where I'm like, once you've done that, I know you're evil. I'm not going to give you my money probably ever again.
Yeah, you're dead to me now.
Yeah, but like, it's a battle of attrition ultimately. So like, these boycotts are great and they're starting to gain traction and they're starting to make impact, and that's something that's really powerful. But we really got to dig our heels in and keep going.
Yeah. Like the Montgomery bus boycotts wasn't like a day; it was like years. That was a long time of like very strategic, and it was detrimental. It like really messed up the entire thing. And that took a lot of diligence.
Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, so it's going to be a battle of attrition. We got to dig our heels in. But the positive, the little ray of sunshine is that it is working. Not at like the level that we needed to as of yet. We got to keep going. But they did see a decrease. People are reacting. Millions of people are doing something about all the awful things that are happening. Tesla's stock experienced a staggering decline of 50% since December 2024. Specifically in a Forbes article, they said on March 10th, Tesla plunged 15% in a single day. Love to see it. It's the worst one-day drop since 2020. And that's because of the pandemic.
A pandemic, yeah. People were panicking.
Yeah. So we did what a pandemic did in one day, and have done even more with the stock declining 50%. Many billionaires that have been impacted by their association with Trump and boycotts and protests. Elon Musk has seen his net worth plummet by approximately $148 billion, dropping from a peak of $486 billion in December 2024. You know what's amazing? Imagine if they just paid taxes. It would have just been like, they would have saved so much money if they just paid taxes, but in their avoidance of taxes, have lost $148 billion.
I saw someone said if we had the same tax system that we did in the 50s, it would be fixed. The economy would be just fine right now.
Yep.
That's it. But make America that again.
Whatever. We got a Jenga. Whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
The dramatic loss is largely a result of a declining value of Tesla's stock and the backlash stemming from protest, because people are really upset with what Musk is doing, reasonably. Other billionaires who attended Trump's inauguration have also faced significant financial setbacks, with their collective wealth decreased by $209 billion since the inauguration. Notable empires, including Jeff Bezos, whose net worth has decreased by $29 billion, and Mark Zuckerberg, who, despite banning Trump in 2021, has also been affected by the overall market downturn linked to political instability. So
they just removed like the fact checking. Yeah, no, he's in his pocket.
Yeah, the boycotts are working ultimately. The billionaires are going to face mass economic downturn because people are digging their heels in and saying that they're not okay with what's happening. So it's working. We just got to keep it up. I also recommend giving Resistance to Trump is Everywhere inside the first 50 days of mass protest a read, because a lot of, as I sent it to Gabe, and we don't see any of this in the news. In fact, if you use Google, you're not going to see any of this stuff unless you type in.
Bad too.
Yeah, Google's corrupt now. I guess it has been for a really long time, but like, it's corrupt. It won't show you these headlines. You have to use other search engines in order to get headlines. So you're not seeing these protests. You're not seeing these successes unless you're like seeking them out. And that's like really hard when the world is on fire and everything is really hard and you have to pay your bills and everything's not affordable. So I recommend that article, give it a read, because then you're like, nice. It's working. People are in the streets protesting. We're just not getting to see it every day.
Yeah, look up the 50-51 protests. So it's like all 50 states. And
I have a link to
protesting.
Yeah, in our sources. So if you go to our blog, you can definitely see some people who are like actively fighting and getting some wins, and like the mycelium network that we talked about, like with we don't always get to see the mushroom, we don't always get to see the victories. So there are people who are covering that stuff. You just have to really seek it out, and we have put it in our sources so you can go look. But we are making traction. So all this is to say that what we are facing is similar to what Fatima says is one of the in the most early episodes. She's showing the window how there are positive things to see, even the myths of all these literal horrors. They take the new girl, I forget her name right now, but they take her up to the third floor and they're in like a horrifying, like many people were murdered in the night from the monsters, but you look at this beautiful view of the full picture and you see the little win of like the scene that is like people working together and a community and this beautiful sunset, and it feels a little less horrifying. It's not to say you're always going to look out that window and never look at anything else, because then nothing will get done, but there is hope and beautiful things happening to fight the horrors that exist. So essentially, we've talked about this before on the Ghouls, but there is a network of actions that we don't get to see every day that is taking place, and so there is hope. I'm also going to talk about the adaptability of humanity, both in positive and negative ways. We see a lot of maladaptive coping mechanisms showcased in From, as well as some adaptive coping mechanisms that are really great. So I just wanted to touch on the ways that From does a great job showcasing the complex nature of humanity. As a whole, most human beings, as a means of survival, have to adapt to the world around them. Sometimes we do that too much. Sometimes we do it not enough. Sometimes we just totally can't embrace reality and collapse. So when we think of From, Kenny said it best. The people who can't cope and adapt to the horrors will not persist. The horrors will not give you time to adjust. And if anything, they will thrive in the torment of you not adjusting. So shock doctrine exists as an example of this, trying to overwhelm us and break us. And that's not to say we should just accept, which Kenny also says, we had not given up. They are continuing to fight. They aren't in denial about what they're facing. But you can't have some blonde lady come in and be like, I have all the answers and I'm going to go off into the woods and get people killed. You need to take a second and trust the people around you that they've already tried some of the things that you think is the new great idea, and that we need to collectively take all of our puzzle pieces and put them together as a group so that we can face this problem together.
Yeah. You gotta go to people who have already actively been doing the work.
Yeah. Like there's literal people from the civil rights movement who are still alive. Listen to them, talk to them. Or descendants of them, you know what I mean? Like, so like everyone needs to just talk to each other, listen to the voices of people who have already done stuff, read, educate each other, and come together. Easier said than done. But that's basically what Kenny says in season 3 when he's talking to the new lady who's like, why isn't no one doing anything? It's like, people have been doing stuff. We've been doing stuff this whole time. It
looks different than what you think.
Just, yeah, exactly. Why do you think you know better? Yeah.
Killed people. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So this is actually a part of human psychology, basically in how we have adaptive and maladaptive coping mechanisms to horror and trauma. Being too adaptive can also be maladaptive in that, like, their Stockholm syndrome does exist. If you get too comfy in the horror, then you're not going to cope with getting out of the horror. But we have to find a sweet spot in the middle where you understand the reality of what is happening and adjust how you move to provide practical safety for those of yourself and those around you. We see maladaptive coping mechanisms in how some characters respond to the constant fear and uncertainty of their situation. As Gabe unpacks, we can't heal from trauma as it is actively happening, but we survive based on our connections to each other. Jade is a great example of this. Instead of confronting his fears or seeking help from others until like the end, Jade often resorts to avoidant behaviors, such as isolating themselves and denying their reality. Like the first season, he's just running around being like, none of this is real.
That's my dream. I'm the main character.
And we see, like, he doesn't do anything like Abby, who takes that in a whole other direction where they're like, we're in a simulation and shoots a bunch of people. Like, you know, like, he doesn't do that, but he's not doing something that's helpful. He's actively putting people in harm's way by his denial of reality of what's happening. And he finds clarity in community. Some of Jade's best moments are when he actually goes to others and talks to them, and like they work together to address the problems at hand. And he's very smart. So like when he is actively working with people, he can help and like provide hope. He has that like wonderful moment with Tian Chen where he tells that story about they come with his you when you go. Yeah. Like he has some really great moments when he stops isolating himself, stops drinking, and like is there for his community. And we also see this maladaptive coping mechanism and like wallowing in isolation. And the father in the first 2 episodes, whose name escapes me, but basically who gets drunk and gets put in the box because he's not there for his family. And because of that, they are killed. And another example of maladaptive coping mechanisms. So both Jade and his character turn substance abuse and cope with the reality by abusing alcohol, essentially. And this inhibits their ability to cope, react, process, and fight against their horrific reality. So if we think of like the fact that the United States as a whole has a very large obsession with drinking and drugs, and has a large subset of the population who are addicted to alcohol, drugs, etc. And it's like not entirely their fault because there's a whole system that profits off of that and pushes that, and like, you know, but it doesn't help fight against the powers that be if at 10 a.m. you're drinking some Bud Light, you know?
Well, it's like, you know, it's when we're talking about those dystopian novels, right? Fahrenheit 451 and Brave New World both have those explorations of like lack of education as a tool of control, which we're experiencing. And then Brave New World has it's through hedonism. It's through like satiation, like where we're you know, drugging everyone so they're in bliss and they're not aware of like the active harm that's happening because they're being, you know, separated mentally from that.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not to say that there's ways that you can cope with things positively with substances, but if you abuse them, it is going to harm you. Sara and Elgin are also a great example of maladaptive coping, proceeding with good intentions with disastrous consequences, isolating themselves from their community, who has like been largely supportive of them from the rip, and then by not trusting them or their experiences, that they don't share what they're experiencing, so they don't present their puzzle piece to the group, and instead try to take it into their own hands and harm people. So each character at various points in the show resorts to these like very maladaptive behaviors that isolate them from their communities and therefore make them more vulnerable to corruption and harm. And these strategies might provide temporary relief, but ultimately hinder their ability to effectively deal with the dangers that they face. And the show highlights the importance of recognizing these unhealthy coping mechanisms just as much as the reality in front of you, as denial can lead to further complications and emotional distress, making it harder for the characters to survive and find solutions to their problems. In contrast,
to another human, you know?
Yeah, they need to like, and like face what's in front of you, obviously. Like you can't just be like, none of this is real. And I was joking with Gabe where I was like, I feel like I would adapt way too quickly to the reality of From. I'd be like, as long as we got the talismans. Like if we have the talismans, I will live in my house and not open the windows. We can put on plays for the monsters and make fun of them because they can't get in our house without us inviting them in. You know what I mean? But like, you still got to fight the problem and deal with the reality of what's happening. You can't get too comfortable in the convenience that the talismans provide. But it's also like you got to cope with the reality of what's happening. So in contrast, whenever a character faces their reality, embraces the trust in the community, we see that community thrive as long as it's not a reactive coming together. So like together they address and overcome problems, and in most cases survive together. Like if we think of Boyd's and the music box puzzle, they solve that as a group because they stopped isolating and actually talked to each other. Or just like the existence of Colony House. Like Colony House is a healthy coping mechanism for the realities that be. They have a farm, they feed each other, they share all the resources that exist and have survived for over a year with Fatima and Ellis and everyone else, like without casualties. Like they had survived together and made it a home, which was really beautiful. And a place where Victor like even starts to like have some structure in his life and starts to heal a little bit. And then like the trauma happens again. But we also see how like there's obviously exceptions to this, because like the most devastating episode that ever exists in season 3, where the animals are released, where it's like reactive and instead they're not helping, or like the tower. And like, you know, there's just like a lot of things where it's like they lose the plot of the community and reality too much by like trying to come up with new ways to make the world mad.
Well, it's not just making the world mad. It's like, it's a retaliation of the world because they are trying to fight back. And I mean, that's what happens. Like we experience these like intent, like they in real life, sometimes they just abduct people who are protesting, and they literally just kidnap a person and they put them away, and they're like, oh, because we said so, and it can destabilize people. Or like the millions of times the CIA has murdered someone and said it was somebody else, and it destabilizes a whole movement. Like, it'd be happening.
And it's like the best moments that they have is when they come together intentionally instead of like reactively, and like deal with the problems that are happening. So, as you said, season 1, peak from.
Well, it's peak community.
Peak community, Because
I mean,
the rest is ouch, but necessary, but ouch.
Because I think it's a very human, and I think it's really valiant of the people to be trying, right? Like, I think it means a lot that new people come in, like the Matthews family and the dad, whose name his name is
Jim.
Escapes me. Jim, thank you.
Jim.
For Jim and Jade even to come together and make the tower in the first season in hopes of like contacting the outside world. The fact that as jaded as everybody else is at this point, that they still like very reluctantly in some ways tried to hope and allowed themselves to hope. And I think they were very clear, like Donna and Boyd were very clear about like, if this doesn't work, it could really be detrimental to like the mental stability of our people. But on top of that, it did anger the world, because instead of just doing the Stockholm syndrome thing that they were doing, where they're all playing town, right? They're all playing, we're subservient, we're just going to play by the rules and no one's going to step out of line. We're just surviving. The second that they were like, no, actually, we want to leave. We don't want to be here forever. Then there was that retaliation. And I think like it is really important that as the seasons go on, that it is getting harder, because that's just reality. There's no way that the horrors are going to be like, come on in, you solved the puzzle. Thank you.
You did it. Yay. Here's freedom.
It was just a joke. It was a silly joke.
We're just going to hand it over. You got to do it. You're also right.
So like as fearful as I am that the plot could be lost, I am like, I do have that just fear just from living through instances where TV shows have let me down in that way. Like when we prolong things just because they're popular versus like giving a good story. Like I stand by it that Supernatural ended in season 5. That's it. It ended in season 5. Period. Right? Not 25 or whatever the hell, right? Like when we, hold on to those kinds of things, like we can have a good ending. And so I do hope that like they follow some of those rules and that they have answers. And from some of the interviews I've seen of the creators, there are things that I've seen them think through. And so I do have this hope that they are thinking through. And I just hope that money isn't speaking louder to them and saying like, keep going because everyone loves you. Because what if you get canceled, dude? Like just have an ending. Just end on a high
we
note.
don't need a cliffhanger season every single time. Like eventually we need an answer to the problems, and like not like it has to be a bow. Like there can still be some stuff that's like okay, but like enough answers that we can feel closure and like we've achieved something at the end of it instead of just like, perpetual ow.
Like not everybody needs to make it to the end. And like it's gonna hurt. Like we're gonna lose people that we feel really connected to, that we've grown, like we've watched and we're rooting for. We're gonna lose them because that's reality. We lose them, right? Like characters.
Yeah.
Like really
if you're me, you
heartbreaking.
Google before every episode if that person lives to the end of what has already happened, and you need that in order to watch and not cry every episode. But
well, that's why like even like episode 1, there's a really traumatic death that I had to give you full warning of, and I was like, please survive and power through. I know it's gonna be really hard for you. I was like, but you really got to. But yeah, not everyone's gonna make it. That's just like, unfortunately, it's a numbers game at that point. But the same thing with Squid Game, right? Not everybody's gonna make it. But that shouldn't be the reason why we're not trying, because then somebody makes it. Somebody has to make it so that others can make it, right? And so like, I think it's great that there's
we can't act recklessly because we don't want to sacrifice people unnecessarily.
No.
Yeah, but
it
is
casualties
definitely
of war.
Yeah,
but I think like overall, this is a strong endorsement to keep taking a chance on a show like From that. Again, hadn't been getting a lot of love. I really hope that you give it a shot and that you get attached, but also like really do see how it is a wonderful representation of, like, in a way that's refreshing versus like other films or series that tries so hard to convince us that people, like the root of people is like distressful, is evil, or like we're one bad day away from being the worst versions of ourselves, which is not true.
Walking Dead.
You know? Yeah. Like it just isn't true. Most like zombie films, like horror shows, like you said. But even I think of like Zombieland, right? They found community together. Like there was that was a really important thing, was that they found community. It was just like, take something away.
That's what makes us people. Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead. They found community, dude. Like it's the only way they survived was that they had each other. So I think like I really appreciate that From is really refreshing in that way of being really honest, making them very human, like you said, Kat, and also just like being really candid about that struggle. And I think it's almost beat for beat what we experience in real life, especially right now, and just keep fighting. Like it's gonna get scarier, but we do have to kind of give up those securities and that comfort that we had from kind of the Stockholm syndrome of our idyllic town life. We gotta step outside and we gotta start fighting back.
Yeah.
So,
and then there are victories. So that was also a thesis on my part. So we do win sometimes.
You win some, you lose some.
Gotta keep due.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you do gotta keep due. Keep it up. I can't remember her name right now. There's someone on Instagram, and every like week she talks about Trump's L's for the week, which really heals me a little bit every week. And then there's another person who will just do like, here's the wins of the world. Sometimes there's like climate wins and things like that. Like if you can find those people, it's really important. I also
need to balance. Yeah.
I recommend Michaela Loach's It's Not That Radical, which Kat was talking about earlier with the mushrooms. Like, yeah, it's not one night. It's not one boycott. It's not overnight. It's gonna be a battle. But I think what we can learn is that we can do it. That we're stronger than we think, and that we care for each other a lot more than you think. And that's going to show now. So find community. But that is like for 2025, at least for right now, this is the end of our society series. It's just 2 episodes, a little special there. Because like I really appreciated these 2 pieces of media in being real. And so stay tuned. We got some more things coming up for 300 more episodes. Stay tuned.
We're never gonna stop.
We're never gonna end.
But not like Supernatural, you know.
Yeah, no.
I love that it keeps going, but I hear you. I really do.
That's not what Eric Kripke intended. Anyway,
I know.
It's a weird retcon. Anyway, don't get married.
Well, your kids. Hopefully not. But
yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Let us know what you think about From. If you have any other suggestions of books that I could read that is like this, or like Squid Game, or another show that maybe is going under the radar, or film, or things like that, like we're always here for that. So let us know. Okay, bye.
Bye.